hello, Helena. Great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Daniel. Good to see you too. It's been a while.
It was exactly, and that's actually an amazing situation. I had the privilege to work with you and to learn from you many years ago. We've been in the same organization, great companies, Marshes, and but now it's not going to be about our past. It will be more about nowadays and the future, and especially about your book. I had the privilege to read that, and this is Dear Monsters by Helena Zikova. So welcome, Helena, in our podcast of the Helprise. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about the little monsters in the generation.
Exactly. In your book, Dear Monsters, you write, the future of work lies to intergenerational workforce, and each generation deserves a seat at the table. Actually, I definitely agree with that. But could you please to explain and tell us a little bit more about your view?
Thanks, Daniel. Well, as you said, the future of work is what we're going to talk about today. And I believe that intergenerational workforce that you mentioned is due to some very simple facts. We've had demographic changes, especially in Europe and in the Western world, let's say, with birth rates that are decreasing, which means we have less and less young workers, yes, less and less young people. But we also have a lot of older workers that are feeling healthy, that are feeling fit, and they're sometimes even in financial stress. So older workers want to continue to work. They want to come back to the workplace, sometimes even after retirement, while at the same time we have this new generation that's extremely dynamic and tech savvy. And in many cases, teams span multiple years, so more than 20 or 30 years in between the youngest and the oldest workers on the team. And I believe that causes new challenges, but also brings us many, many more new opportunities. So I wrote in the book, Dear Monsters, the first chapter is about the good boss. And the good boss was my first boss, who is 40 years older than me. And it's really interesting to see that development, the future of work that has already arrived. So now we are in the future of work, where we've had the good boss come back to work after many years spent in retirement, just because that specific team that he used to lead was struggling, finding the right knowledge and finding that talent that they need in order not just to build up the new generation of leaders or employees, but also just handling operational issues. So that's why I think that this topic is so challenging, and that's why it's so dynamic, because it's going to bring new opportunities at work and for many organizations.
That's an excellent example of your former boss that's coming back to the organization and contributing to that organization. And exactly, I mean, in many jobs advertisements, we read, we offer work in a young, dynamic teams, rather than we offer work in diverse, multi-generational teams. Is it really an advantage that the team is homogeneous, young in this case? And is it really like what employees, especially young employees, are looking for, this homogeneous?
Yeah, well, as you said, I don't actually think that any team that's homogeneous is good, because we know that diverse teams are the ones that we need to strive for, because diverse teams perform better than less diverse teams. However, there is a component here that is very much age-driven, because we know that there is ageism and age discrimination that are present, both for old and young. And as you said, young is always brought in association with it's dynamic, it's tech savvy, it's very driven, more like keen to make an impact, to drive change. While on the other hand, we have older generation or older employees that are, of course, more experienced, knowledgeable, stable, but also less susceptible to drive change, less dynamic, right? But when we think about that, and when you think about your age or when I think about my age, I very rarely associate myself with all the labels, especially the negative labels that we attach to age. So that's why I think organizations need to start to actively build bridges between the different age groups instead of building these walls. And of course, as you said, many organizations are using that young and dynamic team as a unique selling point, but a young and a dynamic team is maybe interesting or used to be interesting for young employees that were joining organizations in huge cohorts. But now, because birth rates are dropping, we have less and less young employees that are joining, right? But the whole attention is only on this group. So it does cause a lot of friction in organizations where, let's say, senior or mid-senior employees are thinking, why is nobody focusing on us, right? Why is nobody thinking about us?
And especially when we have this shortage of talent in the job market, right? So we have to look at the outside of the regular target audience or target candidates that we used to look at before. So I think, in my opinion, and based on your book, we are not doing enough to showcase the advantage of multi-generational teams over homogeneous ones, and your book actually is a great step toward this. And perhaps this should be one of the attributes of the modern employee value proposition, especially targeted towards young people. So to attract them more and to explain that they can have better advantage working in such a group rather than only homogeneous young.
Absolutely. And to your point, Daniel, according to the Talent Foresight report that has been published by your team, we also saw it there. The stats are quite clear. 77% of employees say that company values are important when choosing an employer. And this age diversity is very deeply anchored in the DE&I strategy of every business and of every organization. And it should be an imperative for that next gen leaders or for that next gen organization, because it means providing opportunities for all generations, starting from the graduates up to the 50 plus. So I did say that performance is really important. Diverse teams outperform always. But the gap at the moment is at the leadership level, because I speak to a lot of leaders who are struggling to meet the needs of the various age groups on their teams. This is not something that is being discussed openly. And it's really important to develop clear frameworks for communication, for recognition, for learning and development, because the different generations at work, they don't respond to these challenges or to these opportunities in the same way. But at the same time, also, the roles need to be completely redesigned so that senior employees can take jobs that are more connected to knowledge transfer, to mentoring, to training, and giving the young people the opportunity to lead, to experience, but also to make some mistakes and to fail sometimes. So that's why I always say we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Exactly. And this is what we underline in this Talent Foresight report, saying that there is a new challenge in front of the new leaders, and especially young ones who start to leading the multi-generational teams. So what would be your advice for managers when they find themselves leading this kind of teams?
Well, as I said, currently there's very little support from managers in this situation, but I believe that if we can bring it down to one word, it's all about empathy, because empathy is really needed to understand the different ways that one issue may impact 2, 3, or even 4 different generations, because we actually have 4 different generations in organizations right now. So, for example, I always like this because it's in everybody's lips, the current revolution with generative AI. So young people embrace the change. They expect to now work less hours due to AI in the near future. However, older employees, and that's what the stats are showing as well, they're worried more and more about losing their jobs. So in order to understand this, a manager needs to take a deep dive into the factors that shape both generations, because Gen Z are now joining the workforce in a time where talent is scarce and there are declining birth rates. So Gen Zers are not extremely worried whether they're going to find a job. They know that they will. For them, it's more what kind of a job are they going to be doing, and what kind of a lifestyle is that job going to be able to make happen for them. On the other hand, for baby boomers, it's a totally different perspective, because when they joined the workforce, they were the largest generation post-war, and they had hundreds of people lining up for the same jobs. So obviously they're much more worried about redundancies, and they feel much more replaceable, right? So that's why just this one topic, Gen AI, can be perceived in completely different ways by the older and the younger employees on a team. And that's why it's so important for managers to understand this. And that's why I always say a generational training is the solution, because it can be a tool to solve the problem and to help the managers to pivot their leadership style, so they can flex, they can change and adapt depending on the age group of each employee that they manage.
Right. In your book, Dear Monsters, you focus on Gen Z particularly and how they build business relations. What unique contributions can this generation offer to the workplace and to business, in your opinion?
Well, there are so many, right? Gen
Yeah.
Zers are they're extremely tech savvy, they are educated, they are very resourceful, and also they're able to work independently. They also have very strong principles when it comes to DE&I. They have very strong principles when it comes to the environment, sustainability, and even to their working hours, because they're very sustainable about themselves, about their own energy and their own renewal. So they really are in favor of that holistic well-being that we're talking about more and more in organizations today. But Gen Zers are also very entrepreneurial. They're the people that want to challenge the status quo. They want to innovate because of that tech savviness that I mentioned at the very beginning. But at the same time, they're also very stressed, because they're joining the workplace in a time of financial uncertainty, and they do value job security. So I believe that there is a unique opportunity for organizations to develop a workplace where this young generation can feel like they can innovate, they can thrive, they can build something new and design. So developing that startup mentality in an already established business, and that can convert these entrepreneurial minds and entrepreneurial spirits into entrepreneurs, so they can innovate within existing and established businesses. And that is going to be a win-win for everybody.
That's a great message. And I think definitely this should be addressed to the older or mature leaders, still like X generation or even boomers, when they want to attract young Generation Z, and leverage from their entrepreneurial and innovative approach. And I loved your chapter 3 at your book, The Boss Lady. What would be your advice to a young woman who has an ambition to step into the leadership level? And what are, let's say, two first decisions or behaviors to be implemented to build authority, and especially in the team dominated by mature men?
Yeah, I love that question. Thanks, Daniel. I believe that female perspective of leadership is very important and it's yet to be developed. It's yet to be defined and designed. But what I can say, what I learned from the boss lady, that's that female character that really influenced me and my leadership style is all about visibility. So that's why my message to young women joining the workplace right now and defining and designing their leadership brand would be as visible as you can and take up as much space as you can. And I'm going to tell you why, because sometimes it's frowned upon when you're being visible or when you talk about the great work that you're doing, because it looks sometimes as self-serving, right? It looks vain. But at the same time, we do have to understand that when we stand there on the big stage and when we show ourselves and present ourselves as the people that we inspire other people like us that are younger or that are coming from even more disadvantaged circumstances to see that it is possible to lead, to take up space, to inspire, to motivate, and they are going to be able to achieve their dreams. So that's why I always say building a personal brand for female leaders is extremely important because it doesn't just serve them, it serves others like them.
Well, thank you for this insights. Definitely, I'm going to share it with my daughters. One of them is 22, and she's just stepping into the job market. So, so good directions to her. Thanks a lot. After publishing this book, you have been interacting with many young people who already read that book. So, any feedback you gathered from them? What surprised them the most?
It's really interesting when I talk to people that have read the book because the main character in the book is actually not a person at all. It is a little monster. So the green little monster that lives inside my head, and that's giving me advice on how to act, how to react at work, what to say and what not to say. And at first, I thought that that green little monster is a hurdle, and I should hide it. But then, when I really embraced my true self, I actually decided to show that little monster to the world. And it's really amazing and it's really inspiring when I talk to people or the young people, and they come to me and they say, you know what? I also have a little green monster inside my head. So thank you so much for helping me to identify it and to embrace it and to keep on leading with it, right? So that's just always
Super.
something that connects us all, I believe.
Excellent. Any other projects in the near future? Any other books? You have a lot of insights to inspire others, so it shouldn't be wasted.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Daniel. And the more and more we talk about this, the more I understand how underserved managers are in terms of this intergenerational leadership. So it would be amazing to find time and to write a manual on how to lead the different generation, what kind of communication styles to use in order to engage with all of them, and how to connect them all with one common mission. So that would be a new interesting project for me for sure.
So I keep my fingers crossed. Thank you very much, Helena. It was great to interact and speak soon. Definitely. We're going to continue.
Thank you, Daniel. My pleasure.